Want a large SUV that can walk the walk as well as talking the talk? What about one you probably aren't familiar with, the vastly improved version of the 4th generation SsangYong Rexton? If you're secure enough in yourself not to care too much about badge equity and want a large, capable, well-equipped 7-seat 4x4 for sensible money, it makes a lot of sense. On the move, this improved Rexton certainly feels quite cultured in the cabin, but once you've got properly underway, it's quickly clear that the driving dynamics are much as they've always been with this model line. SsangYong continues to reject the car-like monocoque style chassis approach used by mainstream rivals in favour of the sort of tougher but much heavier body-on-frame ladder chassis that you'd find in tougher SUVs intended for regular off-piste use. You're certainly instantly aware of this Rexton's size and weight, especially if you start throwing the car about. By the same token, though, there's also a pleasing sense of solidity that imparts a kind of feeling of safety and security that some will feel is far more important in a large SUV of this kind. And of course, thanks to a proper heavy-duty four-wheel drive setup with a low-range gearbox, this Rexton can be hujely impressive off-road. We'll get to that once we've told you about the under-bonnet changes. This improved Rexton gets an uprated 2.2-litre turbo diesel engine manufactured by SsangYong, which delivers maximum power of 202 PS, that's up from 181 PS before, and maximum torque of 441 Newton meters, that's up from 420 Newton meters previously. This power plant delivers progressive acceleration from a standing start. The rest of 62 mile-an-hour sprint time takes 11.9 seconds. But more important is the way that this Proven E-XDI 220 unit has been tuned primarily for the strong low-end torque typical of the Korean makers' power plants. You now have to have auto transmission, and it's now a Hyundai sourced 8-speed automatic, replacing the previous Mercedes sourced 7-speed e-tronic auto. This revised Rexton has a much more commanding presence thanks to a more imposing chrome-studded front grille surrounded by restyled LED headlamps, which gives it a more powerful, sturdy stance. This top variant features these angular LED fog lamps too. The rear end has also been updated with revised LED tail light clusters. Time to take a seat behind the wheel. It's quite a step up. But once you're inside, it's really quite impressive. Probably the nicest SsangYong cabin we've ever sampled. The main difference with this updated version of the 4th generation Rexton is the addition of this 12.3-inch digital instrument display, replacing conventional dials in the binnacle and standard on both model variants. Anything you can't find here will be located on the Hiset HD Center Dash touchscreen, which can show its functions in a useful split-screen format and is 8 inches in size on the base Ventura model or 9.2 inches with this top Ultimate variant. Time to take a seat in the second row, which is where that extra body length this Rexton enjoys over similarly priced segment rivals really ought to pay off. That's pretty much the way it works out back here, with decent space for two, and thanks to this low centre transmission tunnel, room for three should you need there to be. This car's long wheelbase means there's room for third row seating too. Headroom's in fairly short supply for an adult, thanks to the way that the ceiling slopes down towards your forehead just when you need it to be a little higher. But it's this restricted legroom that's the real issue here. You could say that that's the case with competitors too, but the problem with this Rexton that isn't shared with a lot of its rivals is that because the middle row seats can't be slid forward, there's no way to alleviate the tiny amount of leg space by compromising with those ahead. And boot space? Once the hatch is raised, there's inevitably not much room if all three seating rows are in place like this. A few shopping bags will be about your limit. But most of the time, of course, you're going to be able to fold these extra seats into the floor. And if that's the case, then you'll free up 649 litres of space, which can be completely flat if you put this adjustable height floor panel in its highest position. Need more room? Well, if you fold the middle row backrest forward, a vast storage area is provided, 1,806 litres in size. SsangYong has done a reasonable job in bringing the running costs of this Rexton up to date, courtesy of its own 2.2 litre Euro 6 EXDI diesel engine. Combined cycle fuel economy is rated at 32.9 miles to the gallon, and the CO2 figure is 225 grams per kilometre, both readings slightly down on those of the pre-facelifted model. The magazines will tell you that these returns aren't up to the levels of most other cars in this class. Well, of course they're not. Few of those rivals are as tough and capable, nor do they have a proper but inevitably heavy low-range 4x4 transmission. Let's get down to the facts here. There is no other properly capable large SUV in the same price bracket as this SsangYong Rexton, which has a little more of a premium feel in this improved guise. If you want something really comparable with 7 seats that can tow as much or go as far off the beaten track, then you'll need to pay around 30% more for a Land Rover Discovery or a Toyota Land Cruiser. Now, this basic point appears to have been ignored by most reviewers, who seem to insist on comparing this SsangYong to rivals not capable of even thinking about tackling the tough tasks this Rexton will take in its stride. Sure, it offers very much a no-nonsense approach, but in the pretentious age we live in, that in many ways is actually rather refreshing. There's still a place in the SUV segment for old-school virtues, and Korea's oldest and most experienced brand reckons it's perfectly placed to deliver them.